Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and this is The Ties That Bind. Yeah! Okay, here we go. And so the ties that bind begin with the struggles I've been having with what I want to do with season 4 of Mud City and how Mary may have solved that problem for me when she inadvertently turned my sights onto the National Academy of Sciences, an organization that has eluded my radar in these CDC, WHO, NIHS times, right? But now has my full attention after a very quick rabbit holing revealed a connection that puts the NAS squarely in the province of Mud City. Right, so the NAS can trace its origins, according to Wiki, to one Louis Agassiz. And that's him right there. He was a Swedish-born philosopher and medical doctor of some prominence who emigrates to the U.S. in 1847 after visiting Harvard, where he goes on to become a professor of zoology and geology. And so by 1862, Agassiz has fallen in with a group of other doctors and scientists from the Cambridge, Massachusetts area who affectionately call themselves the scientific lazaroni. and so the lazaroni wanted to mimic the autocratic academic structures of the European universities. Members of the lazaroni wanted only university-educated scientists at one point, so as to create a pure science for America. Therefore, the scientists who did not match the code and oath of the initial members would be forced, if possible, out of their vocation and not allowed to advance unless they met the qualifications of the lazaroni, who often kept scientists out of any professional scientific position. They were scientific strong arms, just like I said, like the mafia. You either, go fall in line with them, or you're not getting published, you're not getting a job, you're not getting whatever, right? I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And so the de facto leader was this Alexander Dallas Bacchi. And I like how close his last name is to Bacchus, right? And so Alex Dallas here and fellow Lazaroni members Charles Henry Davis, right, and Benjamin Pierce. And so these three men apparently see their opportunity to create an American version of the Royal Society, something they're very desperate to do, when their good friend Agassiz is named to the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution in 1863 by Massachusetts Senator Henry Wilson here, who goes on to be the 18th vice president under Ulysses S. Grant, right? And so you see Alexander Bacchi and Charles Henry Davis, along with Joseph Henry here, who just so happens to be the first secretary of the Smithsonian, right? They were just assigned a permanent commission within the Navy Department and given the task of evaluating and reporting on the inventions and other ideas submitted by citizens in order to aid the war effort. Right now, so here we go, tying the military and science directly with this permanent commission, right? And so the establishment of this permanent commission prompts Charles Henry Davis here to suggest that the whole plan of the Academy, that plan that's been so long entertained by the scientific lazaroni, right? This plan could be successfully carried out if an act of incorporation were boldly asked for in the name of some of the leading men of science. And it just so happens that his good friend, and fellow scientific lazaroni, Louis Agassiz here, he happens to write to Wilson just before this permanent commission is created. And he suggests to Wilson that a National Academy of Sciences could be established, and recommending that if Wilson were favorable, Bacchi, to whom the scientific men of the country look upon as their leader. So the scientific men of the country, their leader is this Alexander Dallas Bacchi, right? They can draft in 24 hours a complete plan. And so on February 19th, Agassiz comes to Washington from Cambridge, right? And he accepts his appointment to the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution. But from that appointment, he goes directly from the train to Bacchi's house, where he meets with Bacchi, Senator Wilson, and the scientists Benjamin Apthorpe Gould and Benjamin Pierce, who we talked about already a little bit, right? And they work on plans laid out by Bacchi and Davis. And the group drafted a bill for the establishment of a National Academy of Science to be put before Congress the very next day, on February 20th, right? Wilson introduces the bill. And so it sits around for about 2 weeks or so. And just before the adjournment of the Senate on March 3rd, 1683, March 3rd, 33, Wilson asks the Senate to take up a bill to incorporate the National Academy of Sciences. The Senate passed the bill by voice vote, and later that day it was put before the House of Representatives, which passed it without comment. I wonder if they even read the bill. And President Lincoln signed it into law before midnight that same day. So within 24 hours, it passes the Senate, the House of Representatives, and into law on March 3rd. Right? That is unbelievable. All right, so this is a very quickie Cliff Notes kind of version, right? There's a very interesting and a much deeper story here that I'll save for another day because I want to get into the connection that absolutely blew my mind and may have shown me the way to season 4, and that comes through Alexander Dallas Bakke, the erstwhile leader of the scientific lazaroni, right? And so it says that he was born in Philadelphia, the son of Richard Bakke Jr., and I love his mother's name, Sophia Burrell Dallas Bakke. Right, he comes from a prominent family as he was the nephew of Vice President George M. Dallas and naval hero Alexander J. Dallas. Right, and he was the grandson of Secretary of Treasury Alexander Dallas and was the great-grandson of Benjamin Franklin, which is really kind of amazing. All right, so I wanted to see, well, was his father, Richard Bakke Jr., was he the grandson of Benjamin Franklin? And so now there was no picture for Richard Bakke Jr., who was a military and political official in the Republic and state of Texas, which is interesting, right? Helping to draft the Texas Constitution and the first of its 5 state constitutions. And so it was Bakke's mother. And so it was Alexander's grandmother who was Ben Franklin's daughter, right? And so his father marries his mother, this Sophia, on April 4th, 1805, right? And they have 9 children, of which I guess Alexander was the first. And so while just doing my due diligence, of course, I'm looking at all the names, and what stood out to me was at the bottom, right, he has a daughter, this Maria Campbell Bakke, and she marries Allen McLean, son of Secretary of State Louis McLean and brother of Robert Milligan McLean. And now when I read that, I was like, wait a minute. Robert Milligan McLean, he was like the uncle of the mayor of Baltimore, Robert Milligan McLean, who was mayor during Baltimore fires, who may have been suicided. Of course, he was the 32nd mayor of Baltimore. And so now when I read that, I was like, wait a minute. So this Robert McLean was related to Alexander Bakke, who was the founding father of the National Academy of Sciences, right? How is that, right? And so I had to go through and I looked at his father, James Latimer, right? And so this is the father of Robert McLean, governor of Maryland, right? And he is the son of the same Louis McLean, U.S. Secretary of Treasury and State, right? And brother of Governor Robert McLean. But nowhere in here is there an Allen McLean, Alexander's aunt, right? His father's sister, married, right? No trace of that. So I think it's really fascinating and may point the way for season 4, because as I was saying, I was really struggling with how I wanted to go with season 4. And I know I was going to start it by doing sort of like a retrospective of the story so far, the first 3 years of Mud City. And I think it's really amazing while I was kind of looking at that journey to see how closely it connects to the things that are going on today in the scientific and medical community. And, it's just something I wasn't really looking for at all. And now I can tie the mayor of Baltimore in 1904 to the creation, through his family, to the creation of the National Academy of Sciences, which is really unbelievable. Right? So it's just crazy the way this thing rolls. And so as I always say, just because you don't know the truth, it doesn't mean you can't have fun with the lies. And so it's looking like season 4 is going to be a lot of fun with the lies around the National Academy of Sciences and seeing where that springs me. Okay. All right. So this was, like I said, this was just a super quick one. And so until the next one, cheers, guys.